Last year, you voted to effectively rework parliamentary rules to support Owen Patterson. We know what that did for Boris Johnson's reputation. Why did you do that, and do you regret it?
I think we all know that it was a mistake.
For you to vote that way?
Shouldn't, for me to vote that way, as well as the government, to make that decision. And no, I wouldn't do it again if I had my time again. And what we know is there's a real need to improve discipline in the Conservative Party, but also to support the welfare of our MPs. It's a tough job being an MP. I know there's not a lot of tiny violins in this audience today, but they do get a lot of abuse. My colleagues get a lot of abuse on Twitter. They have to put up with quite a lot. So I want to support our MPs more, but also I want to make sure that when there is a problem, we deal with it early and we deal with it quickly. And one of the things I would do as Prime Minister is move the Whip's office back into number 12 Downing Street. They were moved out of number 12 Downing Street by Alistair Campbell and replaced by the Press Office, which shows the priorities of the Blair government. But we need to show that parliamentary democracy is what matters to us, and MPs are important, and we need that restoration of standards, discipline, but also support.
I want you to bring in a policy that guarantees that our daughters can go to a toilet in a safe environment in any school in this country.
So I completely agree with you. I have sought to clarify that as Women's Minister. I've been very clear that single-sex spaces should be protected, particularly for young people, as well as vulnerable people vulnerable women in domestic violence shelters, for example. And I can assure you, as Prime Minister, I would direct that to happen, because our girls need, it's a difficult time being a teenager, being a young girl, and you should be able to have the privacy you need in your own loo. So I 100% agree with you, and I would make that happen.
Okay, and a lot of support. But what of a pupil who is transitioning? Where does he, she go to the toilet?
Well, first of all...
I asked, do we have boys, girls, and another?
First of all, I do not believe that under 18s should be able to make irreversible decisions about their own bodies that they might come to regret later. So I think it's very important to note that. And of course, schools should be sensitive. They can provide additional facilities, but it should not be at the expense of protecting young girls.
All right, thank you for that.
I support fracking in areas where people want it to happen. And I do think it can be part of the solution, as well as releasing more of the North Sea gas reserves. But more of the North Sea gas reserves will be quicker. We also need to do more nuclear power. And in particular, so we are now producing small modular reactors in Derbyshire. We should be having more of those in the UK, but also exporting them around the world. So it's a business opportunity for us as well. But I agree with you, it's going to be a tough winter, and we need to make sure we're doing all we can to lower bills and increase supply.
Mr. Sunak, would you support the return of grammar schools?
Yes.
Why?
Well, but as you heard from me earlier, I believe in educational excellence. I believe education is the most powerful way that we can transform people's lives. But I also think there's lots we can do with the school system as we have it. Now, what Michael Gove did several years ago was transformative. And Michael took on some vested interests, challenged consensus, brought in some reforms that mean that millions of our children now are better off. Right? Now, but that's a conservative way to do it. It's not about throwing more money at the problem. It's about reforming the system to get better outcomes, and that's what I would do with education as well.
I have to ask you, have you ever used illegal drugs?
No.
Thank you for that. Let's move on. It's reported around 14,000 members of the Conservative Party want his name back on the ballot. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say to them that I think close to 60 people resigned in Parliament, and it's incumbent on the Prime Minister to have the confidence of the Parliamentary Party, And that wasn't there at the end. So whether he's on the ballot or not, ultimately you need to be able to command the confidence of your MPs in Parliament, and we got to a point where close to 60 of them had resigned from government.
Do you support relocating the House of Lords in
No.
the North? Oh, and why not?
Because I don't think it makes sense for the practical operation of government for us to be separated.
We go over this side of the room.
We need to find ways to do the sanctions in a more intelligent way, because ultimately...
They're not intelligent now?
Well, the problem with energy prices at the moment, we're all seeing it, we're all paying very high energy prices. So we are all paying a price, that is how we are all sacrificing to support Ukraine, and Russia is still able to make money from the energy, because in the short term, the prices are very high, and we haven't been able to completely remove ourselves from it.
Okay.
So, but what we can do, actually, and one of the things I was working on with my colleagues to smarter sanctions, is to look at whether we could put in place a price cap. So actually, if we could have a buyer's cartel in the world where everyone would agree to pay a fixed amount for Russian energy and enforce that through secondary sanctions, which we were working on how to do, that would be a way to make sure we get the energy we need at prices that are far better for us and deprive Russia of revenue that is funding its war effort.
Many people continue to support Boris Johnson, who has delivered consistently through treacherous waters, and many people unfortunately see that you've stabbed him in the back. He is the man who made you as a senior politician, and some people don't want to see that in number 10. You're going to have to take the party and the country through another general election, and I'm not quite sure entirely which planet you're on. David Davis neither. How do you expect to take the party through the next general election based upon those actions? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Mr. Sunak.
thank you, Matthew, for asking the question. So why did I resign? It was a very difficult decision. It wasn't one I took lightly. And you're right, I'm very grateful to the PM for giving me the job of Chancellor. But as you also saw over the past 2.5 years, I gave my everything to that job. And I'm proud of my record as Chancellor, delivering for this country, delivering for all of you, and made sure that we got through coronavirus. I also was proud to be part of his government that achieved many things. And as I said previously, I do believe he was the only person who could have broken the Brexit gridlock and delivered that election victory. But for me personally, it got to a point where I couldn't stay. As the gentleman previously also said, I had a significant difference of opinion with him on how to handle the economic challenges that are ahead of us. And at a situation like that, there was absolutely no way I could stay.